What does it mean when we say biblical manhood? That's the topic we're going to be addressing today on Flourish-Meant. I'm your host, Tina Yeager. I cannot wait to introduce you to this exciting new guest that we have on Flourish-Meant today. We're going to talk about how he went from being a convict to becoming a clergyman and what he has to say about biblical manhood and fatherhood is going to blow you away. I cannot wait to get started. The man's name is Jerry Duckworth. Welcome to Flourish-Meant, Jerry. I'm so glad to introduce you to the audience today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it really is an honor.
In our second half of our conversation with Jerry Duckworth, I want you to dive into what it means when you say biblical manhood and give us some practical ways that men can apply that to their lives if they're listening and begin to take steps in that direction and avoid some of the things that you fell into when you were going in the wrong direction.
Biblical manhood. The key thing we need to understand is who we are as image bearers of God first. There's a substantive aspect to that, as well as a relational or representational aspect to that. For the substantive aspect, it lets us know why we do some of the things we do, why we think the way we think, why we feel the way we feel. So God is creative. Therefore, making us in his image, he made us to be creative beings. So we want to create things. God is love. Us being made in the image of God, the substantive aspect is we have the capacity to love on a level that the lower creations, like animals, does not have the capacity to love. God is rational. Therefore, we being in the image of God, we're thinking beings. We have the ability to think about thinking, which no other creature on earth does. So we have to understand who we are substantively first. God created us with the capacity to love, to think rationally, to do logic, and to create. And then we need to understand who we are relationally and representationally. We were created to be in a relationship with God. We were created to love God and to enjoy him forever. When we have that in mind, we're supposed to love God and to enjoy him. And we enjoy him by doing what he created us to do, to love, create, and use our brains. So that's why it says to love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. We love him with our heart, with our feelings, with the very center of our being, with our mind, with the way that we think, and with our strength, with our hands, with the work that we do. So that's very important. And then as well as representationally, we have to understand that we as image bearers of God are supposed to reflect Christ's glory. We're supposed to reflect God's glory. And it's like a mirror, like he's the sun and we're the mirror. We're supposed to reflect his glory. Now at the fall, something really bad happened. That mirror was shattered. The image of God's still there. We still love, but we do it wrongly because we're sinners. We still think, but we think illogically, and we don't think rationally because we are sinners. We still create, but we use our creative powers for evil. So that image, which was broken, had to be mended. And so Christ, the image of the invisible God, came and was broken on our behalf so that we can be conformed to the image of Christ. At the cross, a beautiful thing happened. Christ took the sin of the world upon himself and was punished in the place of all who would believe, and then he offers us his righteousness. But at the same time, he not only do we have this great exchange of where we can be justified, where we can be right in God's sight, but because Christ rose from the grave, we can have a resurrection ourselves spiritually, and then at the end of time we can have a physical resurrection. But here, temporarily, when we have this spiritual resurrection, that brokenness, that shattered mirror begins to mend back together so that we more adequately reflect God's glory. So number one, the key thing is we need to know who Christ is, because that helps us be what we were designed to be, and that is thinkers, creators, and lovers of people.
That's a really good, succinct way of describing what all people, all mankind are. What is different about biblical manhood and fatherhood compared to the world's description of what it means to be a man?
The difference is vast. To the world, being a man is getting a lot of money or getting as many women as you can. But really, all they're really doing is they're not disciplining themselves. They're giving themselves to their animalistic, their baser desires instead of trying to look like Jesus. Whereas the Christian man, Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. In other words, we're supposed to sacrifice ourselves for our wife and our children. That's what true manhood looks like. Manhood doesn't look like getting 500 women. It's getting one woman who you're going to love for the rest of your life. You make a covenant with. It's having a bunch of kids and raising them up in the fear of the Lord and teaching them about Jesus so that we can go and drive out the darkness. That's the huge distinction in my eyes.
I like that way that you described that. So, what are a couple of tips that you would offer to men who are trying to be more like Jesus in the way that they are representing themselves as men and as fathers? What are a couple of things they can start with to start applying to their lives to make that happen?
I would say the first thing that you need to do is be a member of a local church. Hebrews 13:17 says, obey those who rule over you, for they watch out for your soul. It's talking about the pastors there. Obey your pastors and be getting discipled. Secondly, one of my buddies likes to say, if you're single, get married. If you're married, have children, raise them to love Jesus. And then when they make a profession of faith, then you can baptize them. And another thing for the fathers out there, this is the most important things to do family worship. Deuteronomy 6:4, the Shema. Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And then it says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as a frontlet between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Basically, everyone who steps into your house needs to know this is a Christian household. Me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. You need to lead your family. You don't lead your family like a tyrant. You lead your family by doing family worship, by teaching kids how to love Jesus. And it's real simple. Just cut on City of Light. We'll listen to 2 songs by City of Light every night. We may read a small little Bible story because my kids are young. They can't sit still very long, both of them under 2. We'll just read a little Bible story and then we'll pray together. Fathers need to be doing that every night.
And so, with that second one, I just wanted to kind of clarify about the single get married. Don't just get married to whoever. And if
Oh,
you
for
are in a
sure.
place, if you're in a place where you are not going to be able to have children, or it isn't in the cards where you're in a place where you're in a relationship that God would lead you to be in marriage in that season of your life, there are ways to be a mentor to the people around you and to take up that role in the family of God and still do family of worship in the family of God, whether or not you're like getting married and having babies, like that kind of fatherhood. There's still always opportunities, just like there's for women who aren't going to have children necessarily. They may stay single. That may be what God calls them to. But if God has called you to be single in your season or for your life, that doesn't mean you're in sin. It's just looking
Right,
for
right.
ways to still pass on that legacy of faith in a type of fatherhood. Is that kind of more what you were meaning by that?
Well, we make disciples in 2 different ways. We make them fiercely, like Jesus said, go make disciples of the nations by sharing the gospel. So Jesus says that those who are in my family are my brothers and sisters, my mother. That's those who
Exactly.
believe in me. And so there's two ways that we add to the family of God. Number one is we make disciples by sharing the gospel, but number two is by having a family. For the people who can't have kids, maybe you could adopt. There's a lot of kids out there who need a home. If you do have the ability to adopt, please.
Growing the kingdom in whatever way God calls you to do that, whether it's through fostering, adopting, having kids that you raise in the Christian environment that you create in your home is a key. So I really appreciate you offering your insights on this today, Jerry. How can people stay in touch with you and support your ministry and get a copy of your book?
They can stay in touch with me by contacting me at j.duckworth20 at fruitland.edu. That's j.duckworth, the number 2, the number 0, at fruitland.edu. They can also get my book by just Googling From Darkness to Light by Jerry Duckworth.
Well, I appreciate all of you listening, really giving your ear to Jerry Duckworth and hearing his testimony and listening to his insights on what biblical manhood means. I hope that you'll go out and get a copy of his book. And of course, I hope that you will hit subscribe and come back for the next episode of Flourish-Meant.